So you want to be a reader. So you want to become a reader. So you want to read books. These are going to be the 8 books you should read if you want to become a reader. If you're trying to get into it, these are my top recs, okay? Also, one of the most asked questions on my Instagram, like, I'm so overwhelmed, it's a lot. Just give me like 5 to 10 books you think I should read. So these are mine. First book, Verity. This is really the book that got me into reading. I actually think I read It Ends With Us first. This is It Ends With Us. This is Verity. Honestly, maybe call it 9 books, but I feel like Verity I loved because it's so fast paced. You will be on your toes. You will be screaming, crying, throwing up. This will be your Roman Empire. I love it. I don't care what people say about Coho books, whatever. These really got me into reading, specifically this one. But I did like this one. I would still recommend it. I would still say you should read it. But this one, because it's like more thriller, suspense, romance. Please. I was like, I'm never going to stop reading after I read this. And I didn't. Another book I read in 2020 that really jump-started my reading again, The Woman in the Window. Typically, I don't like when thrillers are this long because it just, 419 pages, like, you basically know, okay, this is fun. This is, like, stressful but fun. And all this is just basically whiplash of, like, you think she did it, but she actually didn't. Oh, what about this person? And like, you know, the author is not going to give you the truth until like here. So normally this can feel very boring because it's like, you know, you're not going to get the answer. But this whole book was so scary in a good way. They also have a film adaptation, I think, of this that I watched, and I also really liked that. But oh my goodness, this book, you will feel like you are the window. You know, forget you feeling like you are the woman in the window. You will feel like you are actually the window. And I loved that. It was so suspenseful, so like, what the frick is going to happen? For my girlies that don't want any of the scary, like, suspense thriller vibes, which those books aren't scary, but they are definitely like suspenseful. Ali Hazelwood specifically loved Theoretically. I loved this book. Elsie and Jack. This is forced proximity, which basically means when you have 2 characters that are love interests and they are forced into the same area, the same, like, maybe it could be a house, maybe it could be like they're on a trip with their friends and now they have to be around each other until the trip is over. Forced proximity. Love. Also, if you know what a fake dating trope is, this is mega fake dating, and that's all I'll say because I don't want to spoil it because it's so good. Another romance-ish that I honestly feel like everybody should read. I love this book. I went into it not knowing anything about it. This is one of my more recent reads, but I feel like if you read this, you would be like, that was a good feeling. That was a good vibe. We're talking about The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but it's not just going through a list of her 7 husbands and everything that was wrong with them. This is interview style. So there is a journalist that is interviewing Miss Evelyn Hugo to talk about the 7 husbands and how they came to be, how their divorce was, any children she had, all like the secrets of Hollywood and the life of an actress, the life of fame. I absolutely love this. It was so interesting and also just like heart-wrenching. Like, oh my goodness. Equally parts entertaining, but also like, oh my gosh, you feel for her. Like, you would think Miss Evelyn Hugo was a real person. You're just like, your heart aches for her. You're like, I cannot believe that. Can't believe it. I loved this book. Written by the same author, we have Daisy Jones and the Six. If you want something that has a little bit of romance, but the characters are so well-rounded, this is also interview style, which I did not know. So you'll see like it's like Daisy, Billy. They're basically a band that broke up, and now all these years later, somebody is coming to interview them to get their story, get like the 411. What were the vibes like? What was it like? And they're basically retelling the story. It was set in the 70s. There's love, there's drama, there are breakups, there are fights, there are pregnancies. It's just so good, so cool. Such an amazing concept you don't see in a lot of books. I love this. Okay, if you want to try a fantasy read, I would recommend the Caraval series. I really liked this series. It definitely wasn't my favorite, but I think if you're just getting into reading, you will really, really like this and you'll think it's so amazing. I mean, while we're here, we might as well just add another book to the mix. That is Fourth Wing. I think both of these are great for beginner fantasy people. I think Fourth Wing was Was that the first fantasy book I've ever read? I think it was, and 5 stars. I love this. There was banter, there's politics, it's high stakes, it's enemies to lovers, beautiful friendships, beautiful relationships. I thought this was so fun. And there's dragons, which you might think, like I did, that's kind of weird, that's kind of silly that the dragons have like personalities that you end up caring about, but somehow you end up caring about the dragons sometimes more than you care about the people. And that's fun. That's really fun. Caraval is basically a game, and there is a game master legend, and people can win the game, earn a prize. We have 2 sisters that play the game. There's lots of stuff that happens. Of course, I don't want to spoil anything, so I won't go too much into it, but it's really, really, really fun. Part of the games is you can't tell what's real or what's fake, so that's really fun while you're reading it, trying to figure out who is who, what's real, what's not, how are the girls going to come out at the end of this. Not knowing what's real and what's fake aspect makes it so fun because you're like, who's lying, who's telling the truth? And it's kind of like a mystery you're trying to figure out while you're reading it, which is also fun because that whenever there's some kind of mystery in a book, or it doesn't even have to be like a huge subplot, but that's something that exists, it makes it more fun to read, and it almost makes it feel like you're reading a movie, like you're actually there. And that's how I felt when I read this. I genuinely felt like I was in the game with them, like go through this door. Like I felt like I was there. That sounds scary, but it's fun. Yeah, you know, we're just going to call this 10 book recommendations. Skip the 6, 7, 8, whatever I said. This is going to be 10 because I also recommend The Gray Seer. The Gray Seer is dystopian. I read it on my Kindle. Oh my goodness. And I need a physical copy of it because I genuinely thought that book was so flipping cool. Essentially, the girls in town, once they hit a certain age and they become like magical, they have to leave and like get rid of their magic. As you read it, you'll kind of get your own sense of what they mean by magic. It's not literally magic, but I don't want to spoil anything. Very crazy, wild ride, but I loved it. 5-star read. Like I think I rated it 4 after I read it, because I read it after I read Fourth Wing, and I was on a high from Fourth Wing, and then I read The Gray Seer, and I was like, holy crap, like these are both amazing books. And then I went into a month-long reading slump after that. So don't know if I recommend that, but The Gray Seer is really, really good. So cool. Also, it's YA, so it's super easy to go through, and you're just going to eat it up. I just know. The last book I'm going to recommend is Divine Rivals. First of all, freaking this cover is so cute. I kind of, felt indifferent towards this after I read it. I read this after I read Fourth Wing, like after my reading slump, I think, and I was just kind of like, because Fourth Wing was just so intense for me, like as my first fantasy book, that it like kind of wrecked me. But now, all this time later, I am like, I really loved this book, actually. I would give it like a solid 4.5. Ruthless Vows comes out at the end of this month, I think. I actually cannot wait to read it. Like, I'm so excited. This is also fantasy, major plot of romance. This romance is really sweet because they end up exchanging letters with each other, but they don't know that they're exchanging letters with each other. Neither of them ever sign off, but then they end up working together. And so there's kind of like that forced proximity there, and a little bit of like enemies to lovers. And I don't want to like spoil the entire plot, but it's really, really sweet. After that, then there's like a lot of scary bad stuff that happens, which that's fun to read about too, like high stakes. I just loved it. Like, I can't believe I didn't really like it at first, but I think that was just like my own fault. The romance also had a lot of depth, which I loved. Like, love that. So anyway, these are my 10 book recommendations for if you want to become a reader. Pick one, read one, tell me what you think, including The Gray Seer, which I don't have a physical copy of because I read on my Kindle, but let me know. Read them, let me know what you think. I love you guys so much.